I'm Carrie Stinson, and my journey through life has been quite an adventure. For over 20 years, I played Barney the Dinosaur on tour and 7 seasons of the hugely popular TV show Barney and Friends. Now my journey is to bring together friends and guests from all over the entertainment world for inspiring and at times amusing behind-the-scenes conversation. I'm Carrie Stinson, and this is Purple Roads. Hello and welcome to another Purple Roads. I'm Carrie Stinson, and I am so glad you're here. It has been so exciting to have this show going on. This is our 4th episode, the last of the year, and we're so excited you're here. So much has been going on since this show launched. We want to thank all the fans that are watching this show, and we want to let you know that you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, and lots of other ones. So we look forward to it, and just keep checking out the show. A lot been going on. First of all, I want to thank Quante, who is one of the fans that sent me a really great message, how he got inspired by Barney and started working for Chuck E. Cheese and then the circus. And I wish you luck. Keep going. And thanks for watching Purple Roads. I wanted to mention that one of the kids that I traveled with on the road, Courtney Cook, has a new song. And I wanted to give her a little bit of love for this. It's called Bethlehem Star Above, and you can check it out on CD Baby and Apple Music. And we'll put a link at the end of the show so that you can check out the song and give her some love. I also want to thank our sponsor, Infusion HF70, for being part of Purple Roads. And we are so excited to be with you. So this week, I told you on our first episode that we were not only going to have these amazing guests, but we were going to have these fun co-hosts. And I'm so excited about the co-hosts I have today. I traveled on the Purple Road with him for all these years, and he has gotten involved in a new world that I'm so excited to talk about today. So here he is, my friend, my brother, Josh Martin.
What's up?
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Welcome.
Thanks for having me again.
Oh, my goodness. I tell people on Purple Roads about being a true Texan and how much I love Texas.
Right.
But I'm also a fan of Louisiana because of this man right here.
Come on.
Yeah. Josh, we met on the road back in 1996. I can't believe it was that long ago.
Yeah, right. 23 years.
I know. We talk about Purple Roads. We actually were on the Purple Roads together.
That's right.
Both of us did special events for years, and then we were also on Barney's Big Surprise.
Yes. Great time.
It was incredible. I got a few questions, all right? As we start off today.
Let's do it.
All right. What was your favorite city?
I'm going to be partial to Vancouver.
Okay.
Vancouver was really beautiful. The scenery, had a great time there. Had my first date with my now wife. If you can believe that. So it's got a special place in my heart. Yeah.
It's funny. I was going to say, what's your favorite special? But I think moment. But I think we just found that too.
Yeah, that'd be probably number one, if not.
What was the hardest part about being on the road?
Besides the physical exertion, probably both the hardest and most rewarding part, as you may probably be able to relate to, is the hospital visits. The one-on-one meet and greets,
right,
with the kids that couldn't necessarily get to the shows or even get out of their rooms. So that was it was hard to do for a lot of rooms, but at the same time it was rewarding. Definitely. Yeah,
it's kind of the special part too, right? The hardest, but also the most incredible. As we're recording this, I got to go see A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, the new movie with Mr. Rogers, and there's a part about Make-A-Wish, and my heart, as I was watching that, because we did so many of those, and what an incredible experience that was.
It was amazing to be a part of. I had no idea, but yeah, it helped shape and mold me.
It's so funny. In the movie, the producers and the director, it's tough for them because they need to record the show, and he's taking a long time walking away from it. I thought that's exactly what we did. I know people wanted us to go other places, but it's such an incredible moment.
Come on,
it's hard
Barney,
to walk away.
We've got to go. You're like, we're doing something,
right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, what year did you leave?
The road I got done on right at the beginning of '99.
Okay.
I finished in the UK.
All right.
At the end of Barney's Big Surprise, and then after that, I continued to do special events, PR. Mm-hmm. I did the 20-year bus tour.
Right.
Went around to the Toys R Us's and other places, and some hospitals as well. And, kept it going till 2009. I think actually my last appearance was with someone that we're going to see later on, maybe today. A friend of mine invited to the show is out in Frisco.
Oh, okay.
You did the sing-along,
wow.
and I did the backstage meet and greets.
Yeah.
And our friend, Chris Rager, he brought his then, I forget how old she was at the time. I think she was maybe 3 or so. And
I don't need to know how old she is now. We don't need to age us too much here on
We've
this.
said too much already, haven't we?
Exactly.
So
exactly.
That was the last time I wore it.
So how did you get into, and what are you doing now?
These days, I am continuing to audition for any role that they'll give me, pretty much. I have an agent, Linda McAllister Talent, and I am mostly on the road doing conventions, pop culture conventions, as well as anime conventions. I am the voice of Majin Buu from Dragon Ball Z, and I've been doing that since 2000, pretty much right after I got off the road. I came back and hooked up with my friends from acting school that I was doing comedy troupes with before, and still did some shows in between legs of the tour, and came back, did shows with them, and after that, a friend of theirs from the show that they were doing, Dragon Ball Z, came out to the show and saw me doing a character and thought that would be good for their upcoming character.
You can't say Majin Buu and then not do the voice. You just made a lot of people really happy doing that.
I lost my headphones. I'm good like this.
Oh, okay. All right. All good. We just keep going. Just keep going. So, you're in the anime conventions. You're in Dragon Ball Z. Who'd you bring with us today?
Today, I brought one of my best friends, both off-screen and on-screen, Chris Rager. He's the voice of Hercule, a.k.a. Mr. Satan, amongst a few...
Oh, yeah.
Uh-oh. You're getting a preview. and Kara Edwards. She plays a character named Videl, amongst other characters, and her character is the daughter of Chris Rager's character, Mr. Satan. And in addition to them being great acting friends, they're great personal friends as well. So welcome.
Hi, it's so fun to be here. Any excuse to get to hang out with these guys. I have mad love for these boys right here. So, this is super fun.
You.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of love in the room today.
There's so much love.
Such a huge fan of them. So it's a pleasure to meet you, Kara.
It's so great to meet you. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And, of course, Chris.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
You guys have known each other for a while.
Yeah, we've known each other a long
Carrie and I
time.
have hung out many occasions.
Yes. So, I've been to one convention.
Okay.
And I...
Which one was that?
Goodness, the
Anime North Texas,
that one
I
with
believe.
the people that were in those costumes, that stands, that
I was at Ant, and then also the esports arena.
Right, Dragon Ball Z fighter.
Yes, the fighter.
So I did some photography for
video game comp
for that.
Okay.
I was blown away by the amount of people that show up, and how much passion and love they have for your characters.
Right. They love their anime.
I'm telling you.
It's been surreal to have started this because I started in 99, I believe, 1999.
Okay.
And so to watch the fandom go from where if I was in a room full of people and they'd say, okay, what do you do? I'm a voice actor. Well, name something that you've done. And I always say, well, probably the most popular is Dragon Ball Z. for the majority of my career, people would go, never heard of it. But now it doesn't matter what situation I'm in, because I'll even preface it. Like, I was at the doctor the other day. He's like, so name something I've heard of. And I'm like, probably nothing you've ever heard of. And he's like, test me. I'm like, Dragon Ball Z. And he's like, oh, yeah, no, that's a big deal. It's a huge thing.
My kids love that shit.
My yoga instructor flipped out when she found out. She's like, are you serious? That's a big deal. So it's been fun to kind of watch the fandom go from, this kind of like group that they were, it's kind of like a cult following.
Sure.
Like, here's our group that we love our fans and they're so diehard. And now it's kind of like, there's a float in the Macy's Thanksgiving parade. This is kind of like, I can go into a CVS and find one of my pops. Like, it's kind of bizarre. Yeah.
Explain for the part that don't know what a pop is. I know there's part of the audience that doesn't know what that is. Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, look, there are these things out there. Let me tell you, I don't have one as of yet. None of my characters. I've been in several franchises that have pop figures, but whether it's One Piece, Borderlands, Dragon Ball, a couple others.
We need a petition for a Satan pop.
Well, no, it's coming now.
Okay.
It has been officially leaked.
Thank goodness.
That I'm getting a Hercule pop.
You've earned it.
Thank you very much. For my friends here, how many do you have now, Karen?
I don't know, 6, 7, 8.
So, oh my God. Josh over here is about to get his 4th one.
Okay.
And I just want one little guy. Just for me. So for those of you who know, Funko Pops are a collectible bobblehead series from, you name it. Game of Thrones to
everything.
Disney Kid. I mean, you name it.
They're pops because it's pop culture.
Right, so pop culture. So it does everything from wrestling, comic books, anime, video games, all kinds of stuff. And, we see a lot of them at conventions because people like to have their pop signed by the people who voice these characters and represent those characters in some capacity. And so, I finally get to have one.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Me
I've
too.
been wanting you to have one.
Oh, thank you.
It's been a little bit of a sore subject for a while.
I know. And I feel guilty, too, because, like, every time that another one is released for one of my characters, and I'm like, it's coming. It's going to happen.
Right. Well, Jeremy Inman, who plays Android 16, he just recently got his pop.
Yes.
I was like, how did you get yours come before mine? I literally used your head to help Gohan defeat Cell. And you died. That was it. I'm still alive.
I was actually at a show with him when the first person came up to ask for him to sign it. And
Did he cry a little?
It was a proud.
Did he have a moment? If he didn't tear up,
I don't know if I saw.
So somebody needs to film that when I do it.
I was going to say, what is your moment going to be like when you sign the first one?
I mean, it's going to be a production.
We're going to have pyro.
Yes, yes. I mean, it'll be like one of the 1 millionth customers shoot off things, confetti and stuff. And
please do this. Please
some capacity. I will make a big deal about it for sure, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Just the fandom of it all and everything else, and look, we do this to make money and to pay our bills, and having a pop like that does increase your potential to do so. So it's glad. Thank God. That's all I can say.
Well, we're all lucky, and I've talked about this on the show beforehand too. Obviously, I took a paycheck too, doing Barney all those years, but it's the greatest job in the world because you also get to interact with fans. Yes, you make money, but also you have impact and you're able to touch people's lives, which is so cool.
No question. In my experience, I mean, if they didn't pay me, it would be almost worth it just to have everybody come up and tell you how awesome you are and how much they love what you do and how much you made such an impact on their life. And even I'm fortunate people know me from doing Barney, and they'll tell me, "Oh my, you literally are my childhood."
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, I enjoy those experiences. Just being with Josh. Josh and I do a lot of conventions together. Obviously, being these two characters and friends in real life, and then someone will be looking over Josh's table and be like, were you Barney? Were you the voice of Barney? And be like, no, I was in the costume. And then that starts a whole other conversation, and then parents get involved, like, oh my God, and there's a definitive line usually. They'll kind of come at, you're like, oh my God, I couldn't stand watching Barney, or oh, we loved Barney. It was such a big part of the household. And we owned all the Barney stuff, and I mean, so
Always tell them, no matter how many times you've heard the song, I've heard it more.
that's true.
You get no sympathy from me. And they're like, I guess you're right.
Yeah, all right.
What is the age group that watches Dragon Ball Z and the anime?
It's changed so much. In the very beginning, I would have said, and I don't know if you guys agree, I feel like the fans that came up in the beginning were probably like 16 to 24 maybe.
Okay.
And now it's endless. What's great is now we have fans come up to us who are in their 30s, whatever, but they come in with their children who are now watching it.
Wow.
So they grew up watching it. Now they've introduced it to their children, and then they're coming up to it. It's like now it's becoming this multi-generational thing. And I feel like, honest to goodness, I was having people come up to me at conventions that were like, "You're my childhood." And I was like, "Guys, I'm 25." Like, so this, I mean, realistically, because we were so young when we started.
Right.
So now I have been voicing characters on Dragon Balls my entire adult life.
Wow.
So yeah, it's like I've actually grown up. In fact, one of my characters, Videl, I'm very partial to because I feel a connection to her because I was not that much older than her when I started voicing her. When I was voicing the movie Battle of Gods and she announces her pregnancy, I was pregnant with my son.
Wow.
So, and I got really emotional because I was hormonal. So I was just gonna do
not upset the pregnant lady.
But we literally, like, we've grown together. So these fans, it's very much the same thing. They've grown with us. And so when they come up and they talk about the characters, and, you were talking about the impact, like, we've voiced other characters as well. And, I have one in a show called Danganronpa that I've had so many people come up and tell me this particular character, Chihiro, this was when I was able to come out to my family and announce, that I was gay or as bisexual or I was, whatever it is because of this character. And oh my gosh, this stuff it blows you away. Or like with Videl in Dragon Ball, people come up and go, she was one of the first female superheroes that really went into mainstream. And so many girls, young girls, that it was like, man, she was a fighter and she stood up for herself and she did all these things and she matched what those boys could do and learned and taught herself. And so she was afraid of nothing. And that's so inspirational. And I hear the most amazing stories when I get out there and I get emotional. Oh my goodness. I've had so many moments where I'm like, and I love her and I understand, So
I mean, the one thing we probably hear the most is that you were my childhood.
Yeah.
I hear that more than any, and it doesn't get old.
No.
It doesn't get old. So,
No.
I mean, it makes me feel old.
Sure.
Yes.
But it doesn't get old.
Sure.
Oh, so
Well, we felt that, Josh. Through doing this podcast, I get all the time, Barney's what introduced me to love. Mm-hmm. I listened to the I Love You song. I had never been loved before. I came from a family of divorce. I was never told I was loved until that song and what you did and you don't realize that when you're doing it, right? When you're doing the job, you understand it's important, but you just don't understand the effect it really has.
Right.
And then you get to meet people and you get messages and it's just incredible.
Amazing, yeah.
It really is. Kara, so I want to talk a little bit more about what's it like being a female in this industry with all these boys.
With all these dudes?
Yeah, all these dudes.
You definitely learn to hold your own. That's for sure. At the end, again, I feel really fortunate that when I started, I was one of the first females in Funimation to come in. And I remember one time being interviewed through an official Funimation something, and they said, what is it like to be one of the pioneers, the female pioneers of the industry? And I was like, oh my God, I'm so old. I'm a pioneer. I hadn't really grasped what that meant at that point.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of took me back, and I had to sit and think about it for a little bit. And it's like, oh, how wonderfully special that I got to kind of come in at a time when it was so male-driven, and watch as things really, and they haven't completely shifted. And while I do a lot of anime and I do a lot of video games, most of my work is actually in commercial narration, English language learning. Highlights Magazine, the children's magazine, is my biggest client.
Oh, wow.
I've worked with them
Very
for over a decade. So I record all their magazines every month for international language learning.
Oh, wow.
and do the production as well. So back then, that's another one. There were no female engineers or producers, or and I lied my way through most of it. Is people would come to me and go, do you know, I want you to be able to produce this whatever, and I'm like, absolutely. Hey, dude, come over here and teach me how to do this really quick. So I think I was really fortunate to get the start that I did. I started in radio. And I worked for Radio Disney for a number of years. I had a show on Radio Disney. They taught me how to be a writer. They taught me how to be a producer. They taught me how to put together my own everything. We did characters. We did so much stuff. So Disney, it never occurred to me like, oh, I'm a female. I probably shouldn't be doing these things, because that just wasn't something that was part of our world at Disney. It was like,
I often say that to myself.
Yeah, it's like
Chris, you're a female and you shouldn't be doing these things.
Wait.
No,
This is a very deep voice female. So yeah, I was really lucky. But believe me, I have hit my stumbling blocks, and where but I'm a little feisty, and so I'm not afraid to step up and say, oh no, don't you do that male thing. I'm just as capable. I can do this just as well. And so, but I respect where we all need to fall in line with things, and I respect, if someone's had more training or whatever, then they deserve the job.
Right.
But yeah, it's been really fun to now suddenly walk in and it's like, there's a female engineer, there's a female producer, there's a female, like it is shifting, and I think that line is starting to blur significantly. And it's been fun over the past 20 plus years to kind of watch this and go, you go girls.
I love that. Well, I think we all find in this industry, when I started doing Barney, I'd never been in a costume. I had absolutely no clue. And at one point they came to me and they said, can you dance? I said, sure I can. I can't dance.
You lie your way, man.
Absolutely did. And my mom was actually my first choreographer and taught me the whole routine in my parents' garage. So
great.
In this business, and I think it's so important. I was talking earlier about Quante and asking for tips and tricks, and I think I don't want to encourage lying, but I think we all do what it takes.
I was going to say, you got to do what it takes to get to where you're trying to go, and it's not necessarily lying, because if you are willing to get in there and learn how to do it, that's a totally different thing.
Sure.
But I've gotten several gigs where they were like, can you do this? And I knew I was capable. I knew it just was a matter of, okay, I'm going to have to learn how to do this, and I'm going to have to learn how to do it quickly.
Right.
But I'm also not afraid to come in, and if someone comes to me and says, can you do this? And I know I'm not going to be capable of it, my answer is no.
Right.
Because my reputation is on the line, and my reputation is everything in this industry.
Sure.
So I'm not afraid to go, I can't do that, but I can absolutely point you to the person that can.
I think there is a difference between saying, yeah, I can do that, and then thinking to yourself, I can actually probably figure out how to do that. And then being, yeah, I can do that, and being like, doing nothing to take steps. You know what I mean? There's but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, creativity is creativity, and in some capacity, you want to be able to how to tell the story and find the beginning, the middle, and the end. And many of these facets of that, whether you're producing something, writing something, it has all those elements, so.
Absolutely.
And I'm competitive, so that's mostly it. It's like, someone comes in and is like, could you? And I'm like, yeah, I can. You think someone would do it better? I'm fiercely, probably more with myself than anything else, is it's like, I want to challenge myself constantly to go, okay, so you're doing this well. What else can you do? Try
a lot
this
of people
one,
are really
here.
unaware of her competitiveness because she's only competing with herself a lot. So a lot of people don't know that about Kara.
Fierce competition.
Right.
Too funny.
Chris, so when did you, or what was the first voice you ever did?
Oh, the first voice I ever did as a child, as a person?
Professionally.
Well, I was going to say, as a child growing up, my dad could do Donald Duck really well. Oh. And so he taught me Donald. So as a boy growing up, my first voice to mimic was Donald Duck. Because you'd be like, and just go from there.
Nice.
And then, but my first professional voice I ever did was Mr. Satan, Hercule from Dragon Ball Z.
Wow.
And am I allowed to ask him a question?
Of course you can.
Yes.
I want to know, because I know how a lot of us got into the industry,
Right.
or how, especially Dragon Ball Z. I want to know your story. I don't know. And actually, Josh, I don't know your story either of how
Well,
exactly
ours is similar somewhat.
Ours goes together. Here we go.
Okay.
So back in 94 or so, whatever, I was probably in my second year of college. I was on the 8-year program at a 2-year college,
Okay.
and it was Brookhaven College at the time, and I did not have $16 for a lab fee for my drawing class that I was taking.
Okay.
Because I had budgeted out myself, and so instead I was like, well, I want to take some sort of elective type course, and so I took an acting class instead. I'm 18 years old, and I never took another drawing class. In fact, I never took another history, biology. I stopped taking all of those classes, and I just took theater classes. That's how much I loved it.
And improv, right? Because
Well, and the improv did come along soon. There was
that's the big thing.
because I got into the theater. There was a lady there, Nancy Fine, who was a casting director here in Dallas for a long time, and a director and stuff. And she was running this sort of continuing ed improv class, like after school, after college hours, I guess. And so I hopped in there and started taking some improv classes there. And you know how it is when you end up being good at something and everyone starts to tell you, hey, you're pretty good at this and you should maybe keep doing this more in some capacity. And so
that's actually never happened to me. I just kept doing it.
no, really.
Nope.
Well, I usually
I'm doing it regardless.
I usually needed
That's
some.
that competitive we're talking about?
Yes.
Well, it was good to get a positive response
Yes.
reaction from people, right? And so I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe there's something to that. I do like doing this, and I am having fun, and people are enjoying it. And so I did probably about 3 or 4 plays at Brookhaven College, and then a few of my friends had gone to KD Studios, Actors Conservatory of the Southwest.
And this is all here in Dallas, Texas.
It is here in Dallas, and they came back and were like, "Hey, you got to go to this, Chris. You got of all people, you got to go to the school." And so I left Brookhaven College, and I went and talked to people at KD. I got some loans and some grants and things, and I started going in their program. Josh had previously started that program. But due to some tardiness issues and not showing up issues, there were 4 semesters, right? So I had taken my first semester. Josh was in his second semester. They asked Josh to come back and redo his second semester.
Okay.
And so from there, he joined my class going into their second semester because he was retaking his. Right.
Okay.
Right.
So
he's far more responsible these days.
Yes, I was 18. I just moved from Louisiana. I was just learning how to be on my own and be responsible for myself, and I was working through some things. And but fortuitously, I came back and
That's a big old SAT word.
right.
Look at
Well,
you.
hey, I went to school. But no. So
You took English classes in
Yes,
college.
yes, exactly. I kept taking the English classes in addition to the acting classes.
Right.
But so came back and wound up in Chris's class, and we wound up doing comedy troupes together.
Yeah. After we graduated from KD, a friend of mine that I knew outside of that world, Mark Orvik, there was also John Clark, who we'd gone to school with. We had all kind of put ourselves together in this capacity. We had this big, crazy improv comedy sort of acting troupe called Actors Without a Stage.
Okay.
And there was like 15 of us,
Yeah, too many people.
Right, and so we ended up trying to put on a show at the Barney Studios in Las Colinas.
Wow.
The La Suprema.
Oh, okay.
La Suprema Organic Mexican Food Restaurant.
Is there any pictures or video of this?
Man, I bet someone does.
We may need to find that, look that up.
Right.
But anyway,
I don't have it.
we put on our show. It wasn't very good, and but there were some things good about it. But as a whole, it wasn't a great show.
Some sparkles.
And then we did a few shows there, if I remember properly. And then from there, we kind of disbanded it a little bit. And then one of the I guess he worked in financial aid at KD. he came to us and said that he booked bands at different venues in Deep Ellum and around Dallas and thought he could get us a gig. So we're like, oh, well, a gig? We can put together a troupe for a gig. And so we kind of condensed that troupe down from 13 to like 6 or 7 guys. Okay. And we put together some more of that material. And so it became much more... less bulky as a troupe.
Sure.
And
Now, was that Section 8?
Yeah. Well,
that was precursor to Section 8. That became Dead Comics Society.
Okay.
We shortened Actors Without a Stage to AWAS too. That became like a thing. So we were called AWAS for a while.
Little
and then then after that, Dead Comics Society. And then that all disbanded. And then we ended up getting jobs at Dick's Last Resort. In the West End.
Okay.
Do you know that restaurant?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
and I used to go.
So for those of you who don't know, Dick's Last Resort is a restaurant where the servers and
They
bartenders
insult
are surly to you.
Yes.
And somewhat insulting.
I can't imagine you guys.
No, that's not
Oh
so
my
hard
God.
to
I
imagine,
was-
isn't
right.
it?
We
Yes.
were awesome.
I was so good at this job.
So good, in fact, he was fired 5 times.
5 times. I
For
was,
being too
No,
good at your job?
Yes, exactly.
I was fired from Dick's Last Resort 5 times in my career there. 5 times. There was a lot of manager
I want to interview
turnover.
the person that kept rehiring him.
That was the thing. It was
There
a
were
new- it was a
5
new
different
person every
managers.
time.
That's how we got to
Yeah.
That's how it worked out.
One manager would leave, and I'd swoop
just
back
go
in.
back in?
Yeah,
Oh,
because
that's
it
amazing.
was my home. Is where I belonged. I belonged there.
Okay.
The training
But
was
yes.
easy. He already knew everything.
That was part of the problem. I didn't like to do side work. I'm like, look, I'm a showman here. I just put on a hell of a show. Now you want me to fold napkins? That's your job.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
So
I'd
all
find
of that got you to. Do you
Yes.
feel like all the improv really helped you when it comes to doing what you're doing
Yes.
now?
Oh, 100%. Just coming up with different character voices and different scenarios and things, whether it was on the fly from an improv or something we had developed over time. But using that system of improv to basically write, that's really what improv is, I think, best for. You look at all your good sketch comedy troupes out there, and I promise you they're improvising a lot of that to get to that point, or at least, in my opinion, especially for, the Groundlings and
Right.
Second City
Sure.
people and stuff like that.
But it happens so much in voiceover is you have to, it's so good if you can have the skill of improv to just suddenly come up with something on the fly, because sometimes things don't work once you start putting all the pieces together. It's like, well, that's not that good. What else could we say?
Right.
And if you have another idea, this just happened to me literally last week. I was doing a session, and it was an early session. It was like 9 a.m. I just dropped my 4-year-old off at his preschool. We had a screaming fight the whole way there, and I get back, and I'm doing this character that I don't even remember the name of, and they're like, why don't you get into characters? Why don't you just give us I don't know, just 5 minutes of improv, go. And I'm literally sitting there like, are you serious? Okay, let's do this. And then, but thankfully, because I've done tons of improv classes, I always tell people that's the number one thing you need to go take is an improv class, because you have to be able to think of a character on the fly, and you have to be able to create the backstory in a nanosecond. And so because I had that experience at 9 o'clock in the morning, all flustered from my day, I was able to create a character. And within 5 minutes, we were recording the script, and we were done with the entire thing within 30 minutes. So
Wow.
that's the training from
Well, the great thing about improv is, people really think, oh, well, you're just making it up off the top of your head.
Right.
But
There's training
yes
that
and
comes with
no.
that.
Yes and no. There's a lot of preparation that goes
Yeah.
into it. And once you kind of know and understand what the rules are in that world, little bits of information can help a lot and go a long way. So in the world of anime, where I have to go jump in the booth and I don't know what character I'm playing that day, I haven't done this show before, and we got to finish it up in an hour. You take your little bits of information and you use the tool of your life scenario in front of you and the characters and people and from pop culture and people and stuff like that, and you find something, you pull something, you sell it, you grab it. And that's the idea, is go out there and sell it, fall flat on your face, make it be incredibly horrible as long as you're going for it.
Yeah, do it with passion. If you're
Right.
going to fail passionately.
Yes.
Kira, what's your experience in improv? What's your
So
background?
I have just taken classes. I was never in a troupe. I never
Right on.
performed. It's one of those things I think is important
Sure,
to have in your wheelhouse.
Absolutely.
So every few years, and it's actually been a while because again I have a 4-year-old and boy does he keep me busy. But that every once in a while I'd go and I've taken different classes in
Okay.
Deep Ellum. I've taken classes in North Carolina. I've taken classes wherever I was living. I always wanted it helped me in radio as well. I co-hosted a morning radio show in North Carolina for a long time, and it just helped to be able to kind of keep fresh because when you're on the air 5 days a week at 6 a.m. you're kind of just you need need help.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a thing. I've always done classes. I was never good enough at it to actually really
gotcha.
do it.
So for
I leave that to you. You want
I doubt that.
Yeah, I bet you.
all right, for all three of you, explain, because I'm new to this. I understand the voice-over world when it comes to the big purple dinosaurs, but to this world, are you watching? So are you watching the clips when you're doing this, or is it just a script in hand, or are you by yourself? What's going on
in anime?
here?
Yes.
In anime.
In anime, you're looking at what's called a time-coded script and video. So
All right.
everything's time-coded. Anytime anybody makes a noise or says anything, that gets a time code. It gets a time code stamp, and that's when that noise has to be happening or that line needs to be taking place. So yeah, we watch the sometimes short to semi-medium length scene just to kind of maybe get an idea of what's taking place. So we listen to that nowadays in Japanese. Back in the early days, we did not have those things. We were flying by the seat of our pants. These days, we really have a chance to listen to what the Japanese originally did to get an overall idea of tone and location of the voice. Are they calling out to somebody? What's going on? The emotion of what's taking place. And trying to give it a performance that stays true to the original, but at the same time enjoying and playing to an American audience.
Sure.
And making it your own. Exactly. So.
And you're by yourself when you go into the booth. You're by yourself because there's no way there is technicality involved with trying to make sure that everything is lining up with the flaps. The flaps are any time that a character's mouth starts moving, that's called a flap. So your words are having to fit so that it actually looks. In the beginning, anime got a bad rap because sometimes it didn't always match up, but that's because we were recording to VHS tape, and we were having to rewind the tape between every take. So now that
it was beta, man.
It was ridiculous.
So back in the day, you actually had to be really good at matching flaps.
Wow.
To really make sure, because being able to slide things and move things into play nowadays, because everything's digital and Pro Tools and the software,
time compression expansion.
It work better now. I mean, back in the day, the tape and Pro Tools used to hate each other and they'd crash all the time.
So much better now, but it's because of the technicality. You can't have 4 people recording at one time. So it's fun. I like. You never know if you're going to be the first person recording and you're recording into a void, or are you going to be the last person recording and you get to actually hear everyone else's performances and then react off of it. Yeah, so it's one at a time, and it just kind of builds up. And you've got your script and you've got the anime. So we do these so quickly now, and those of us who've done it for such a long time, you're basically just reading the script, and then afterwards they look and go, okay, did that match the mouth? Because if you're reading these big long lines with big paragraphs, you're not watching the mouth exactly, but you've got it in your periphery, so you kind of have a general idea of, she just stopped right there, that just happened. And
little subtleties like that. I always, and maybe y'all do it a little differently, but when I'm watching in Japanese, I'm using my periphery, as you say.
Yes.
I like that word. I wouldn't have been able to say it like that, periphery. But I'm really following along in the English and with the Japanese, so I'm looking for those pauses. How much time do I have for the pause and the flaps?
Right.
And trying to kind of get that in
the rhythm,
in a bit of a rhythm, not a sing-songy thing, but more rhythmically, and musically, as it were. And so that normally helps. So at least I know that when the pauses are happening, because I give them those pauses when they're happening in the line, that Pro Tools is an amazing thing. It can slide and move to where you want it. It can be slightly compressed or slightly expanded without distorting it too much. And so, you don't have to be so great at matching the flaps these days, but I still think coming from that old school way of doing it. I prefer to, like, I almost hate it when the engineer's over there.
I know, yeah,
moving
it's like
things.
a
So I was like, no, do it
thing.
again, because I saw the rhythm that I was off on.
Right.
And now I
now
got
I can
it.
do it.
And now I got it. So let's just do it again.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm the
It's
same
just-
way.
yeah.
And you rely so heavily on the directors and the engineers because, first of all, the engineers are going to make you sound good. They're the ones that's going to
Yes.
take your audio and move it around and squish and do what they need
Yes.
to do to make you sound good.
Future voice actors,
Yeah.
learn the names of every engineer you ever meet.
Oh,
Yes.
I mean, the engineers are everything. But then your director is so important because you're not going in there and you're not given the show ahead of time. You're not given a script
No.
ahead of time. You don't get to go in and research. You have to literally rely on that director because when you walk in, you're in a void.
Wow.
And they go, okay, this is what's happened up to this point. This is what's happening in the scene. And then if you do it, you could be so off. And they're like, oh, you know what? No, they're actually way more sad during this scene. Or, then the director is, I mean, those two people, to me, sometimes it feels like, yes, I'm lending the acting and I'm giving my voice, but boy, those two pieces are the most important between the engineer and the director to really make the whole thing come together.
I call the engineer like Chris Angel or David Copperfield.
Oh, it's
a lot of times.
true. It's true. There's times where they'll play something back and I'm like, oh, sorry, guys, let's do that again. And you hear the engineer go, give me just a second. And they play it again. You're like, God, I'm good.
Yeah. Like, oh, that wasn't so bad, actually. Yeah. Nailed it. Nailed it. One take Rager, that's
Now,
what they call
Do
me.
you run into that where you think you nailed it and they
All the
don't
time.
think you nailed it?
All the time. I mean,
Sure.
Because,
Sure.
well, because sometimes, and also there have been times, I mean, I don't,
Or vice versa, where they think you did it and you're not happy with what you
there
did.
is only one
I would
show
say
that
more
I,
so that I get,
Yeah.
I agree, Chris.
I more so think that that wasn't that good.
Yeah, I wanna do it
And then when I
better.
hear it back, I'm like, oh, that was pretty good.
or sometimes just because you missed you didn't fully grasp what was happening in the scene
Sure.
at the time,
Yes.
and then you do it and you're like, that sounds great, but it doesn't flow well once you add all the pieces in. Oh, that makes sense. Let me do it again. But there's only one
I
show
always try to
that
make sure I get a second read in there because
Yeah.
I know this first one's never going to be exactly what you want.
Yeah, so you
give
can do a
something
second
else.
one. But there's only one show that I feel confident enough to come in and it's because I'm really good friends with the director too, so I can come in and go, no, I know these characters and he wouldn't say that. And it's more of a collaborative effort between me and the director, and this is Raleigh Pickens and it's Dragon
Right.
Ball, it's anything Dragon Ball Super, Dragon Ball Z, because he's so familiar and we're so familiar that
Right.
he gives us a lot of leeway to go,
Like
well,
when
what
it
would
comes to
Goten
Dragon
say?
Ball, we direct ourselves these days.
Yeah,
I would
and
say,
but
right?
he's so good at
Because-
making sure the scene makes sense. But he's allowed me to go back because I voice two characters in the show,
Okay.
so I voice a female character and also a little boy. And sometimes my characters have lots of scenes together where they're interacting, and I'm very particular about I don't want anyone going, is that the same voice? I want it to be very different.
Can you give us an example?
Goten is a little boy who sits right here, and he's always hungry, and his life is awesome.
And Videl is actually my own voice. Gohan, I remember now what the Gold Fighter was said to be wearing. Yeah. So I like
This
to make
is
sure
fun.
they're very
It's fun
different.
watching this.
It's awesome.
It's really fun. You definitely have to check this out on YouTube because this is fun watching this.
Hey, I had a question for both of you. When Carrie and I wore the suit, there were times where we had maybe injuries or
Yeah.
difficulty doing the job, either with the suit or just the circumstances. For both of you, a time or times where something similar happened?
I have one.
Yeah.
Where I was injured. and
Well,
couldn't-
do you have vocal
Something-
issues? Do you have vocal issues?
Oh, I mean, like vocal
Sure.
things happen all the
Hazard.
time because you get sick or you
just
get
weather changes sometimes.
Weather
you know?
changes. So you're-
something in the air,
yeah.
pollen.
Sure.
You're always, but I have one was I was recording the Dragon Ball Fighters game, which ended up being a really big hit, and I was recording Gotenks. So my male character Goten, who he's this
cute little boy that sits right about here.
he morphs into, he fuses with his best friend, and he becomes a character named Gotenks. And Gotenks is way more tough and rough, and he's like got all the attitude. What? So that one's Gotenks, and I was voicing the Fighters game as Gotenks, and I had pneumonia.
Oh,
And I was coughing really bad. I was on like week 8 of having really bad pneumonia.
They had to burn that microphone.
Oh, that's true.
gosh.
No, I
They
wasn't
did a torture.
contagious. I didn't, but I was super sick and I was coughing so much. And about halfway through the session, I had oh my gosh, I had the most horrifying pain in my ribs, but I was so determined to finish the session with Stephen Hoff and his wife Terry, whom I adore them both. And so we get through this whole session. The next day I was in so much pain, I went to an urgent care and I had dislocated 2 ribs recording Fighters.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow.
Bang.
I have not. I've dislocated other people's ribs while voice acting, but not my own. Not my own. No.
Wow.
Yeah. Someone said, people don't think this is a physical sport.
No doubt. Chris?
Top
you
that.
know, I don't look.
Good luck.
I play a lot of intense characters, and so I mean, I have a lot of walking out of the booth with my head pulsating and sweat pouring down my face and things like that.
Because there's a lot of screaming. And
There's a lot of screaming,
violent.
and you know, I mean, people think of voice acting. Well, you're just using your voice, and that's just, you know, I mean, the reality is, I'm still acting, I'm still performing, so there's a lot of physicality that's taking place, and a lot of movement, and then, you know, I do play a lot of loud, sometimes yelling characters, and that intensity, you know, amps against the blood flowing and everything. So, I don't really have some crazy fun story about breaking ribs or anything.
Like Sean Schimmel, who voices Goku, the main character in Dragon Ball, has a famous story of doing a Kamehameha that lasted so long he physically passed out.
Yeah, that's because he's a little. No, I'm saying. Can I say that? Can I say that one?
You did. You did.
You did.
Oh, well, I'm just saying. I love you, Sean.
Chris, can we get a little bit of that intense? Give a little bit of Mr. Satan.
Well, Mr. Satan.
I love Mr.
He's not
Satan.
even my most intense character, I think, sometimes. But Mr. Torg from Borderlands, and then some of the Goliaths I play in that game, too. I play 2 different versions of the Goliath. One's sort of big and dumb, and I'm gonna get you. And then you shoot their heads off, and they, you know, freak out, and, you know, we get really ragey. But Mr. Satan, you know, he's always intense. Ian Sinclair, who plays Whis, he always makes fun of me because when I do Mr. Satan, my hands pop. You know, that's like a thing. You know, and you really begin to think as an actor, going back and looking at characters, the little physical hand gesture you do that gets you into that character. You know, and for me, it's these hand pops. So it'll be you know, well, I'm sick and tired of all these light shows and tricks. If you want to fight me, you got to fight the champ, chump. Oh, yeah. You know? So, and that little bit of physicality.
I cannot voice Gotenks unless, because that's my difference between going from Goten, who's super cute here, to anything that's Gotenks. I have to be like, you know, super ghost kamikaze attack. I have to like drop in my mouth after every,
Bam!
So now what's it like, the two of you, because the character, right?
He's my daddy.
Yes.
So what is that?
That sounded weird. I am her father.
Are you glad that's on tape?
Yes.
Can I get a loop of
that? Who usually goes first so you get to work?
Whoever's schedule
So
makes it
you
so
don't
they
know
go
who's
first.
gonna.
you never know.
Luck of the
Never
draw.
know.
So are you used to reacting to his character, or
maybe? It literally just depends on who gets in there. In fact, the only thing that are the fused characters, like when I become Gotenks, for years, for the entirety of the show, Trunks was voiced by an actress, Laura Bailey, who is amazing, and she would always go first.
She's done okay for herself.
She's done. She's
all right.
She's done okay.
You can Google her.
Yeah, she's kind of a big deal. She would always go first because Gotenks really takes on Trunks' personality.
Okay.
And so I spent most of my career having to listen to her say something and then repeat and go in and repeat whatever she said. Exactly. And then they would overlap our voices and that would become Gotenks.
Okay.
Then Laura left the show to preserve her voice because she's gone on and she's doing amazing things with her life and career. And then Alexis Tipton came in. And while she was getting to know the character Trunks, it was like, you know what, Kara, why don't you, since you're so familiar at this point, why don't you take over? And I was like, great. And I did. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait, seniority. This is my character now. So now I'm just hoping nobody comes through and goes, actually, no, Alexis is good now, because I love doing it. But now I get to take the lead and I can go in and do the character and she comes in and follows what I do.
Nice.
So that's the only time that you really, it kind of matters who's going first. Other than that, you're kind of in a void. I like going last just because you get to hear everyone else's performances.
I would say that, like, especially for Josh and I, because our characters live together. She's off on her own now, married and with a family. But I would say probably more often is that I record first. Usually, would you say that, Josh?
No,
No,
I
it's
don't.
the other way
No,
around?
it's usually me. Yeah.
Okay, I'm usually getting booed then, which is good. As an actor, you want something to play off of.
Right.
Right. It's more simple. I think
Okay.
as an actor, it adds a little
I like
extra
reacting.
little bit of simplicity to it. Because you have something to go off of. But I mean,
So, Chris,
depends.
what's the hardest character you do?
like I said, a lot of the video game stuff gets pretty intense.
Yes, yeah.
Just because, it's a lot. It's very repetitious.
Okay.
So they don't just want one take on a particular line; they want 5. So they can go back in and have something to play around with. So you're doing a lot of these lines multiple times, multiple ways, I mean. Also, too, there's elemental damage that takes place in this video game in Borderlands 2. So whether it's acid or corrosion of some kind, or fire, or a freeze weapon, or something I have to then go and do those reactions based on whether I'm set on fire, or I'm burnt, or I'm dying from acid, or I'm being frozen to death. So you have to then go back in and repeat those and do those 5 different ways. So,
And how do you do something like that?
Right,
All right, all right, now you're on acid.
Well, no, I'm on acid,
But you know what I'm saying.
You're
Your
burning
character,
by
you're burning by
well,
acid.
man, you guys are freaking me
Whoa,
out.
this is nuts.
Well, you just kind of go there, You just sort of imagine, you've in your head at some time you've probably seen a movie or seen something where somebody was being burned by acid, and you just kind of you pull from those kinds of things that you've seen or heard or hopefully not experienced yourself, but you just go with that, and run with it, So it's and you're
Sure.
if it's fire, or freezing, you just and the physicality
Right.
The physicality is everything.
does help change those, but emotion does that too, though. As an actor, your breathing really does dictate the emotion that it's taking on. As we intensify our breathing, you begin to relate that to more anger and someone being upset. As we slow that breathing down, you begin to think of somebody more somber or sad, and so being in control of that breath can really help you dictate and take you to, a different emotional place.
Do you get that way, Joe? I'm noticing these two are very physical with what they're doing. Are you the same way?
Yeah,
Definitely.
Josh is ours. He's just chilling.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I
You
get
have
crazy. With my kid Boo, he's characterized as like a junkyard dog, and
Okay.
when I do him, I'm like,
You need the physicality.
I got to.
It looks like it's a must.
right? Yeah.
Well,
if you
play
don't, you
what's
can
on the
hear the
screen.
difference. I mean, just watch. If I just go
Versus?
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
physicality matters so much. That's,
And yes.
that's one of the first things you. And one of my favorite stories you were reminding me when you were talking, and I'm going to steal this one, is Kari Wahlgren is an amazing actor in LA. And she has done such incredible work. And I did a panel with her so many years ago, and she told a story that I was like, oh, that's so good. She was voicing a game, and her character was being fed into a wood chipper. And she asked everyone in the audience, she said, so what do you think the first question I asked the director was? And everyone's kind of sitting there, and she's like, feet first or head first? Because that's going to completely change how I voice this. And I was like, oh, that's so true. Like, it's the details.
Yeah.
You got to find out, like, okay, I'm being lit on fire, but is it starting with my head or my feet?
Yeah,
Is it
because head first is going to be a shorter
that's going to be a
reaction.
shorter reaction. If it's going to be your feet, are you trying to stop, put the fire out while you're
Right.
like? You got to think through all the details. I'm falling off a building. Well, how tall is the building?
Yeah.
Or and they'll usually say you're falling off a building, so give us 10 in a row when you're doing reactions. So you lengthen them each time because it's going to be a different fall or a different. Do you land on your head or do you land on your back, or do you land, because those are going to be different sounds. So you have to be willing to think of all the variety of all the horrifying things that can happen to a human
Same
body.
with climbing or leaping on things. There's little hopping on stuff,
Yeah.
and then you got to hop and land on things. And just just little things like that, and just you don't think about just that you have to do those 30 frickin' times.
Yeah.
You know?
Martial arts
True.
training helps. I had a lot of martial arts
Yeah?
training throughout my life, yeah.
right.
And learning
Like,
how to, because there's a difference between punching and taking a punch.
Mm-hmm.
Those are two very different sounds. The way your
Yeah.
air moves is going to be different. So kind of knowing what that's going to sound like was very helpful for me doing all the Dragon Ball stuff. In
I
gaming.
always tell students if you're getting punched in the gut, go with that vomit noise, that that noise, and then once you learn that, you're
good.
You're on the next level.
By the way,
There's only two things you need to know how to do is to get punched, to punch, and then go, huh?
Yeah. I had Tatum, J. Michael Tatum, in my classes recently, and I like how he put people through some of those emotions. He's like, okay, you're pushing a heavy box. All right, now now you're lifting that box up the stairs. Right,
Yeah.
and so a real specific visualization of something that we've all done that's going to give you
Gotta think it
an
through.
excerpt, and I thought, man, that's actually really clever stuff.
That's great. Yeah.
Giving a real physical realization of the sound that he wants that could relate to me swinging a weapon or hopping on something or getting on top.
We're going to go. We've got a little bit of time left.
All right.
I want to talk about, I want to talk about the conventions. Your first convention, what was it like when you got to be in front of the fans for the first time?
Who wants to go? I'll go. Wizard World Chicago.
Okay.
And I don't know that it was my actual first convention. It was the first one that really
Most
struck
memorable?
home. Yeah. That was the one where I had been working in radio, and I went to this convention, and I was with Chris Sabat and Jason Liebrecht and Sean Schemmel, and it was all the boys and me. And it was such a eye-opening experience because that's when the fans really kind of came out and interacting with the fans. I was like, what am I doing with my life? This is where my heart is.
Right.
And so I went back, quit my radio job, and built a studio in my house and went
Wow.
full-time in voiceover. So that convention changed everything. The second one for me that was really big deal was Animazement. This was many years ago. They flew in the entire Japanese cast of
Oh,
Dragon
wow.
Ball. And I got to meet both of my characters' counterparts, the original voices from Japan. And
Man.
that was such a, it was an honor that cannot be put into words to sit on a panel with the voices of the Dragon Ball franchise and to interact with them and talk to them and have dinner with them and learn about what their life's like in Japan and how famous they are. And
Very, very famous.
oh, and the voice of Videl, there's been two, but the voice of Videl, we were sitting there talking and someone asked us on the panel, what's it like to meet each other? And of course I give this long answer, which would surprise you all. And when they asked her, she said in English, everything had been through a translator,
yeah.
but she said in English, when I met Kara, I knew I had met my family.
Aw.
And all you see it's on YouTube, and all you see is me go. Because I was just like, and that's what it felt like. I mean, I've been hearing her voice my entire career. So it was a very, very poignant moment.
Wow. Chris?
One of my first conventions, my first memories of going out to meet fans and stuff like that were the Dragon Ball Z Hummer Tour days.
Oh, I was in North Carolina. I didn't get to go on
You
those.
didn't go on those?
No.
Oh, well,
I wanted to.
Score Entertainment had created a card series game, a card series and a card game based on the Dragon Ball, kind of like Pokemon or Magic and
Yes.
those kinds of things. So they had hired a driver to drive this decaled up, military grade Hummer, black Hummer with all the Goku and Vegeta and all the characters on them and Dragon Ball all over it. And they would drive that around the country, and then they fly the voice actors in for different events and different types of conventions, and we do like a comic book store meet and greet one day, or like at a mall or something. And so that was really my first introduction into that kind of world where like people were going to pay me money for me to sign my name onto things, and I was like,
Whoa.
well, I needed to figure out how to do this more. Like how do I get to do that every day?
Right.
For you, Josh?
It was the same. The Score Entertainment. I'd say probably more recently, back in 2015, after being the primary child caregiver for my children for years, they finally got old enough to leave them at home with my wife without me feeling guilty. And I went out and I sat at a convention, and by lunchtime, I'd sold out of the eBay trading cards that I had bought to sell. And I was like, wow. They still like this? And it's been 4 years since, and I've been doing.
Josh literally called me up. Was like, "Hey, man, we need to start doing these together." I was like, "I've been saying that for years, man. You just been, at home
raising children,
right?"
No, and that's the same with me. Is when my son was born, I think I had 4 conventions the first year of his life, which I had said, like, don't book me in conventions.
Right.
And so I was having to fly out with a baby and take my mom so there'd be someone to watch him. And I was having to, like, nurse him between panels and stuff. And I was like, this is too hard. So I took a big break. I didn't do conventions for a long time. And last year was my reintroduction into the convention world, and this year I already have a ton booked in 2020, and that blew my. It's like, whoa, this and what's great is I take him to about half of the conventions because now he's 4. So again, I'll fly my mom or fly someone to come and hang out with him while I'm working, and he digs it. He loves going to those. So he knows all the characters,
that's
and he
awesome.
loves the cosplay. He loves meeting the fans. He loves to sit at my table and try to, like, sell my goods. It's hilarious.
That's awesome.
It's fun. He's growing up in this world.
That's very cool. One fan that you remember, each of you, real quick. One fan that you remember.
Okay.
Remember, you can improvise. So, one fan that you remember that touched you from whatever way, if it was amusing or whatever it was.
Oh, wow. Recently a fan brought me and Chris replica belts of our characters. Right?
That was cool.
The fan gifts are amazing.
Yes.
Sometimes.
And I mean, this is, molded foam. He took a weight belt and put glued foam on it and designed the letter. I get candy all the time because my character eats candy and turns people into candy, and people bring me treats. And so, I mean, I can't think of one besides that one recently.
I mean, we meet so many fans that are, we have these great little quick moments and things like that, but they do bring you things. And, a lot of it too is sometimes not necessarily fans or people who are staff or at the convention or they're running a booth themselves, but they are fans and stuff like that. And, you begin to kind of build relationships with people as you kind of go to different conventions and stuff. So it's kind of this, what I really enjoy is having little tiny kind of friends and family meetups depending on what city or location I'm going to, because I know these certain vendors are going to be there, and I know these certain guests are going to be there, and I know the some of the staff members because they work this other convention, so I get to see them. So in many ways it's like looking to scope out your friends again and get to hang out with them as you kind of travel in this world.
I've had some incredible interactions with fans, and I've also gotten to go to hospitals and meet children.
Incredible.
And there's been so many very poignant. When you ask the question, there's one that comes to mind immediately, and that was a convention. Again, it was Animazement, as an amazing little convention in North Carolina that I love going to. And I'm on a panel, and a fan stands up, and it's a girl. And this was kind of the cusp of when it was becoming mainstream. Up until then, it was just kind of a cult following. And she stood up, and it was a grown woman, and she told the story about how she had been watching Dragon Ball, and she was severely bullied in school, and she was about to commit suicide.
Wow.
And started watching Dragon Ball Z, and Videl came on, and she was so inspired by Videl that she got together, she started fighting back, she did all these things, and she ended up becoming a doctor. And while she was telling the story, her husband and children stood up, and she was tearful and told me how, that this character that I had grown up with, that I've been so lucky to voice my whole life, my whole adult life, really saved her. And that was the moment that's the moment that I understood how important this job was. It's not just me being an actor. It's me doing something that matters.
It's so amazing. We had Ken Scott, who played one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the 2 movies, and he got into martial arts because he was bullied.
Same here, actually.
Bullied.
Same
he
story.
got beat up, and so he went and got his dad to sign him up for a class, and changed his life.
That's completely. Martial arts altered my existence. I was so bullied in one school that I had to be moved to a different school because they feared for my safety.
Wow.
And when I moved to the second school, I asked my mom if it was okay. I used my allowance to go sign up for martial arts classes, became a black belt, became very
Wow.
competitive in martial arts, actually won the Grand National Championship in 95, won first place in my category. Don't train anymore, but that was so pivotal for me to have something that gave me the self-confidence to and also learn the discipline to. It's not about fighting, it's about protecting yourself and feeling. And there, I never had to use it. The confidence in me shifted and nobody bullied me after that.
There you go.
It was very pivotal.
Right.
Josh, this has just been a blast.
Right.
This has been a blast.
Thanks for having me and my friends.
Yeah, absolutely. In this world, thank you. I've seen a little bit, but now I feel like I've gotten immersed into this.
Thank you
this
for
world.
having us. This has been so much fun. Like I said,
Absolutely.
any excuse to hang out with these two dudes. I love these guys so much. So, and to talk about stuff that we're passionate about, this is really fun. So
thank you so much. Thank you for watching Purple Roads, and remember to keep your eyes, ears, and heart open, and you'll find your Purple Road. I love you all, and I will see you soon.